Welcome to our BIMCon podcast, and let's say thanks to Mercedes that is the mobility partner, and welcome to Romania. Is your first time?
Yes, it is. It is my first time. So thank you very much for having me. Thank you to Mercedes for having us in this podcast, and I have so far loved my experience here in Romania.
Yeah, that's great. Aidan, tell us a little bit about yourself, about who is Aidan?
Well, yeah, so I'm 41 years old. I have 2 children, and I live in London. I didn't always live in London in the UK. I came from the countryside, so I made the shift across to the big city, and I work at BuildingSMART International as the marketing director, really responsible for a lot of the communication about open standards, OPENbim, and that I also have responsibility for our events and really just the messaging about how we can make OPENbim as important as it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to being at BuildingSMART International, I worked at Bentley Systems, software company, and before that, a few other software organizations. And maybe the only other thing that's maybe of interest is that I'm a marathon runner as well, so I do a lot of marathons and try and fit my training around, as we all have a busy schedule, which is always quite challenging.
Yeah, that's nice. What made you change from the industry perspective, from the software side to a NGO, or that could impact the world actually?
That's a really good question, and to be totally honest with you, there are 2 reasons. Well, firstly, the first reason is probably because I really enjoyed my time working at Bentley, and I still have a lot of good friends and contacts there. And I felt like I wanted a change at that time in my life, and it felt like BuildingSMART was a great place because it was in the center of everything that we do. So where better to try and make an impact in the industry, but also maintain contacts with people that I really enjoyed working with, and a company that I thought did really good software, than by coming to someone like BuildingSMART International. And the other thing was, I really felt that it was a great opportunity to make a difference. And although that's often said, I really did feel that, and I really feel that today even more than ever, because actually everything we do in the center part of BuildingSMART International, you can see the effect when you come out to places like this and different markets around the world, and that's very motivating for me every day when I get out of bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really nice. And you run how much marathons a year?
Well, it's about 2 a year. That's probably about as much as I can do. They're quite hard. And the training is actually quite a hard part to it, right? So that's my marathon. My next one is in December in Valencia. So hoping that I can get round.
Yeah, that's nice. Let's go back to the OPENbim marathon. What are the, biggest objectives that BuildingSMART International are focusing on?
Yeah, it's a good analogy actually. OPENbim can be seen as a marathon because actually we're about 30 years into the journey of what we call OPENbim, sort of IFC and BuildingSMART, as we go back through the history of what we've developed. But there are pivot points that you need to make, and we're currently at that transitionary point between what has traditionally been the existing IFC that we know, industry foundation classes, really based on step format, which is what we would probably consider older technology, and we're moving into a new world of more connected data, APIs, cloud infrastructure, all this type of stuff. So we have to migrate the current systems across to this new world, and it's a big change, and it's exciting change though. It doesn't mean though that we don't keep hold of everything that's good about IFC, or that people use it in their day jobs. So we roughly think 80% of the use cases today are in IFC 2x3, which is a standard that's been around for quite a long time. So actually we acknowledge and recognize that, and that's what's good about being part of the industry body. We reflect what the industry needs and what they want. So it just means we're developing a real big shift and a paradigm change, but at the same time, we're maintaining what's good about IFC and what people do for their day job.
And why people, companies, or administration or states are saying no right now? No to the change, to OPENbim standards?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it comes down to there's always, with any form of change, there's uncertainty, number one. And the other thing is then you have to change your current direction and support the things that relate to what that change is. So supporting your team's strategy, delivery, relationships, contracts that you have, everything is in place. So it's totally understandable. However, we feel like the use cases put forward will drive that positive change that is actually going to really improve the industry. And when you start to think of the bottom line about tackling productivity challenges we have in the industry, inefficiencies, the need to make things more automated, tackling sustainability, these types of things, it's going to have to happen. So we will move into that direction. But I totally understand that it's an unknown world, therefore that is daunting.
Mm-hmm. And when, let's say, we're going to the bigger real estate investors or developer, or actually owners of buildings, okay, they see the value of their assets, right? They can see that. How can they see the value of the digital asset?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, I think this whole BIMCon event is really looking at a couple of things, and one of them is the digital transformation. So we have to remember that everybody is in a different phase of what their knowledge is around digital adoption. So for some people, it is just a case of actually using tools like Excel and PDF or presentations or PowerPoints. These are sometimes the considerations that we have when we're dealing with this stuff. So everyone's maturity is different, everyone's perspective is different. However, it's very clear that in the new world that we talk about AI and machine learning and things like that, having some knowledge of how you need to move into more digital future is important. And actually, that's where standards are really good, because they give everyone a base level, a foundation to work from. And things like IFC are really important for that, because actually, when you're a client or a property owner, knowing that you always will control your information that is led by an industry body is, I think, the most important thing, because no one is going to deny them the information that they want to create or manage or maintain. That's up to that person, and that's the way it should be. And that's what we stand for, actually, for the clients, for those people to feel comfortable that they are managing their own future.
Mm-hmm. If you're thinking at a success story, a successful project, you're thinking about?
There's a lot of successful projects. We're working one at the moment in Denmark, which is called the Primele tunnel. So this is a mega project. I think it's Europe's largest infrastructure project. And we've just delivered our work program with them. So we've spent the last year working directly at buildingSMART International with a major project. And the reason was they came to us and said, help, we want to embrace OPENbim during the construction of this project, because we're concerned exactly those things, that we're not sure we'll have access to our information in 10, 15, 20 years when we need to operate this tunnel, right? It's a tunnel that actually is going to connect Denmark with Germany. And so they're already mid-contract. They've got contractors in place, 13 different contractors delivering models in a certain format. And they wanted to actually change that to have it open and based on IFC. So we had quite a lot of challenges around that in terms of, building up the reasons behind it for the contractors, what's in it for them, how do we move them all to this new phase, and how then do we develop the technologies to support that. So we use something called IDS, Information Delivery Specification, to help define the requirements that would develop the models for these contractors to submit the data to the client. And we've just delivered the first part of the project. They'll be receiving these new IFC models this week, pretty much, and we'll be able to see what the quality output is of that. But I see that as a real success story, because not only is it one of the biggest projects, most complicated projects, but we were able to get all stakeholders aligned around this idea that OPENbim was really good. And when you're under contract, that's a scary thought, right? You're changing the contractual obligations. But we're really pleased the way that everyone's responded, that this is a really good way to go forward. The software vendors are also involved, helping support that. So everybody feels the benefit of that for the long term, and that's really one of the success stories we have today.
We were at the BIMCon, and you told the story how you tested the ideas, and you are talking about ideas now. If I'm new to this game, how can I understand IDS, IFC, and all abbreviation?
Yeah, okay, so we're all guilty, well, particularly me and people at buildingSMART, very guilty of using these abbreviations because acronyms, or what I might call AOS, acronym overload syndrome, is very real. So we use IFC, IDS, BSTD, BCF, all these acronyms because we talk about them every day, and therefore we don't realize that someone turning up the first time doesn't really know what it means. So yeah, I think that's something we need to work on. But they are fundamental standards and services, is the way we would describe them. And when we talk about these acronyms, what we actually mean is OPENbim. So OPENbim is really the collection of these things in operation. So OPENbim is essentially a sort of collaborative process of the sort of collection of standards and services supported by the industry and technology to actually deliver these values. So when we talk about that, what we actually mean is a better way of working through standards, through technology, and making sure data is usable throughout the life cycle, because that's what we're really interested in. So yes, we use industry foundation classes, IFC, which is the core schema for delivering these things. So if you're interested in working in architectural construction or engineering, IFC possibly become a big part of your workflow because you'll be having to develop models, data models related to your asset. You might be working on a building and you'll be developing these, and one of the exports could be a IFC file, for example. BCF is a collaboration platform that is supported by over 100 different software companies that if you've got an issue with the model you're working on, say, I've got a clash on one of the staircases, BCF is a way of telling people on the project that actually there's a clash here and we need to fix that problem. BSTD, the data dictionary, was also a topic that came up at BIMCon today. It's really a sort of interconnected set of dictionaries that supports the IFC schema, so we can query things within that. We can understand the terms, the types, the properties related to those things, and we can have translated versions of that and local things. So important for Romania that you've got the local consideration that you need. So that is also a tool that people would be working with. And then IDS, which we mentioned earlier, information delivery specification. It's about how you define your information requirements. So if I'm an architect or an engineer and the client is telling me that they would like it delivered in this way, IDS is a machine interpretable way of doing that. So I can write this XML code, base it on the IFC schema, and it gives me a strict guideline of what it is that I need. And that means we have a lot more certainty in the model. So no longer is data inaccurate or wrong. We can actually make it fundamentally 100% correct, and we can test that as well, which is a really exciting thing about IDS.
I like to talk about standards, but who is developing these standards?
On the technical side, we have Leon van Berle, who's a technical director, who developed this technical roadmap in 2020, and a lot of this was outlined there. So we have a very lean set of resources at buildingSMART International. There's only about 13 of us globally, so there is not development within buildingSMART International, but we collate or manage the work items that would develop these things. So under our direction, we can help set the work, the alignment, and bring the resources together under a buildingSMART umbrella as a way, as an environment to develop these standards. So IDS, for example, many people involved in the development of the standard, but it's done under the umbrella of buildingSMART International, so we can manage and maintain the integrity of that standard and keep it going for the industry. But it's really industry driven, which is really nice. It's, your question earlier to me about why I do what I do, actually, it's the industry driving what we do is on our agenda, and that's really key. And that's actually how standards are developed. Yes, we have some resources, we need those resources, but at the same time, we're told that this is needed.
Yeah, and basically, okay, we create a language to collaborate. It's basically that way. But please tell more about your team. You're working in buildingSMART with Celine also, and how are you work like a team?
Yeah, I mean, we are a very close team because we have to be, because of the sheer volume of work that we've got. We have to be quite aligned, but we are also located in different areas. So, I think with the advent of COVID, we all realized we could do remote working and make it work. So that was a big change for everyone in the industry. And of course, at BuildingSMART, we're no different. Celine, for example, is based in France. Leon's in the Netherlands. I'm in the UK. We have different people spread all over. But keeping the momentum going is really important. And actually, one of the places we do that is at our summits.
Yeah.
So our summits are really good opportunities for us to not only deliver the work at the summit, but in the preparation and the build-up, it gives us a really good focus point. So, for example, with the professional certification program, we knew we were going to be launching the practitioner course in Marrakesh. So we had a deadline of the date of the summit. So it's the 30th of October or whatever the date is. The 1st of October, I think, was actually the date that we delivered that. So we're sort of a month into that. But then in the build-up to that, we can work together on delivering what is required and making sure that the summits are a good anchor point for delivering that type of work.
Mm-hmm. And from what I've experienced in the last years, BuildingSMART grow a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot in chapter. Maybe is the impression that Romania it's part of BuildingSMART now, but it's quite an experience to participate at the summit.
Mm-hmm.
And as Patrick McCleany is calling the International Friendship Club, I would recommend at least one time to participate if you're in the industry, because are quite some smart people there, and you can learn a lot. Going to the chapter side, how do you see things evolving right now? Do you see that BuildingSMART will grow even in South Africa, for example, where it's going to be in all the states?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because actually, I don't know what is success, what's a metric? Is it just volume of chapters that we're looking for? So then do we look for 100 chapters around the world? Is that a measure of success? It's not personally what drives me, because actually what I like to see is a strong chapter. So I'm quite happy with 20 very strong chapters. We currently have 36 strong chapters. So that's a really good measure of success for us. So the threshold to become a chapter is quite high for us. It's getting higher every time because we learn as well. But actually visiting Bucharest here in Romania, I get to see firsthand how strong the chapter is, how vibrant the community is, how interested the community is in these things. And that's the metric that we're looking for. So for us, that's where we feel much happier. If there's a small number of very strong chapters is better for us. So it's really not volume, actually. I mean, my inbox is probably one chapter request a week from different countries. So
okay,
I can spend a lot of time on it, but to get to a chapter, it takes a lot of effort. You know what it's involved in it. It needs people. It needs people working often for nothing. And
we're paying to work.
You're paying to work, and hopefully the long-term effects are really good, and the industry, your country benefits. That's where it's different, right? We notice that chapters are very proud of the work that they do, and that's the metric of success that we like, rather than the volume. I mean, it's nice to see the 36 chapters, but that's not a goal of ours. It happens by the work that's put in by chapters.
Running a NGO, you have sometimes financially limitations but looking in this perspective, if BuildingSMART would have 10 times more financial support, what would BuildingSMART International would do?
It's a good question. I mean, I haven't thought about it, but I mean, my immediate thing is, I think it was a very famous thing that Microsoft did, where they just said developers, because in some ways, having technical people support the industry would be fantastic. We get a lot of requests for technical help. People want people to explain things related. We had a question today around the data dictionary. Everywhere we go, people ask things because it relates to their job. So having more people to support that would be brilliant, because then we would have more users, we'd have a stronger network, community, and more answers. I think there are some conferences out there that do really well in answering people's questions.
Yeah.
And BuildingSMART summits, they are fantastic. But someone once said to me, I go to the summit with 100 questions and I come back with 100 answers. Like it's or 1,000 answers, to the questions I didn't even know I had. So that would be nice. And I think the other thing would be to support chapters more. Be able to help support with events and this type of thing that we're doing at BIMCon, because actually the risk of putting this stuff on is quite high for a not-for-profit. So I know I take a big risk every summit. I have to take a big contract out. Yeah. I would love for that not to be the case for the chapters as well, because that's a limiting factor. When you're an NGO, you don't have the capital to do that type of stuff. And it's a leap of faith. I was saying to Stefan yesterday, all this stuff is a bit of a leap of faith, but the feeling is great when you deliver it. I can feel it in BIMCon, put on a great event, and I think it's been a real team effort. But
and the reviews are helping a lot. and let's say I can tell more about BIMCon in the past years. After the events, you remain with some feelings, with some emotions that should last more. It's first time in Romania?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm amazed by the architecture. I think we're driving here through maybe near the French Quarter, because I can see the Arc de Triomphe.
Yeah, exactly.
And took a picture this morning on my run. It's very beautiful. I mean, the architecture is wonderful, isn't it? I think I'd quite like to live here.
Yeah, that's good. I know actually an American that came once and said, I want to stay, and more foreigners are wanting to live in Romania, and it's a great place. How does buildingSMART International sees the Romanian chapter and let's say the Eastern European part of OPENbim?
It's a really fast adopting region for OPENbim, actually. But if I, generally, if I look at the whole region, we see a lot of growth in it. There's a real opportunity to equalize markets and opportunity within that, and we see that that's a good thing. I think in terms of where we perceive the Romanian chapter, well, we don't have a ranking system or anything about chapters, but I would put it really high on the definitely, because what I see that you guys are doing are fully adopting everything that comes out of buildingSMART International in terms of OPENbim and what we think. So those acronyms we talked about earlier, they're fully embraced by the chapter, and I think that's a really good starting point. And I think they also, as a chapter, seem to have a really strong, vibrant community, and I think that's helpful for the chapter, right? The messages that you're putting out there are being well received, and people want to develop their careers and be supported by the chapter. So I'm very, very impressed, and I've always been impressed by Stefan and the team. I mean, I really admire his efforts, but actually being here gives you a new perspective on it as well, that confirms that decision that it was a good thing that we were able to support the chapter development.
Yeah, that's and the numbers from the PSERT Foundation program that the trainees that Romania already has, it's quite impressive for the first year. That
it's fantastic. I mean, it's again back to the metrics. If you have a chapter that's developing or delivering training to support the market, that's again, it's another success metric for us.
Can you see Romania having a summit here in Bucharest?
I think absolutely we could see it. I think there's a strong enough market here. There's a strong enough demand. We'd have to figure out the traffic situation. But no, I joke. Every city has about an hour's commute from the airport into the city, so that's pretty normal. But I think we could definitely consider a summit here, international summit, bring international audience to this market. And what I like about the things that we do around a summit is we get the flavour of the local market, and we often find then that people are very proud of their country and the dishes. I saw on the menu at my hotel that there's Romanian night for food and things. So, and I suddenly thought, I'd like to try that. So I think it's all a part and parcel of the experience of the International Friendship Club, which allows us to experience other cultures and other things. And I'd love to have a summit here for sure.
Only one or two more questions. I was discussing with somebody in the coffee break, and if you'd choose a question for Aidan, what will be? And he asked, what do you think company, because I hope a lot of owners or managers or professionals are gonna look at this podcast. What should they do to start implementing OPENbim in their companies, in their, let's say, to introduce that in their culture?
It's a really good question. It's something we get asked a lot. And actually, for me, what I would say is that you could start quite small. I mean, that's often said, but actually a lot of the things that we talk about, a lot of these acronyms are free and available to use today. So we shared this IDS example and the BSTD and things like that. So you can go on the buildingSMART website. You can access these tools yourself. So if you've got someone that's good with computers in your department or your company, ask them to go and check it out. Go and create an IDS file, use the validation service, actually develop some of these things yourself because they're available. This is what we do. This is why we do it. So you can start quite small. I even used the example in my presentation that I've created an IDS file. I'm not a technical person, but it's actually a lot easier than you think. There are free editors out there to do that. And why not, particularly if you're a client or an owner, why not go and start to think about what it is that you want out of the data that you might need? I need this information about a door or a fire rating or something. This is what's really important to me. And you can specify that information now in a machine interpretable format. So why not start small, just trial it. There'll be people in your organization that will be passionate about it, will love it, will like it, will do it on the weekends because that's what they like. We see that all the time. So I would say just take the plunge and give it a go.
Yeah, that's great. We've started with a question about Aidan. Let's finish with one about you. If you have an advice for your younger self, what would that advice be?
Oh, wow.
20 years.
20 years ago, if I had some advice. Related to the work I do, so I'll do two. I'll do one personal, one work I do. I think stick to the principles that I fundamentally agree with. So as people, we all actually have a natural feeling around certain things. And for me, I think when I think about helping the industry, that's actually something that makes me feel good. So I kind of wish I'd made the jump a bit earlier, if that makes sense, because every year I learn so much out of this community, as you said, when you go to the summit, that actually I feel like I missed out on some of those, the earlier parts of it, but I can't change that. And I sort of don't regret it at the same time, but that would be nice that I could have done that. And then maybe personally, if I could just train a bit harder for my marathons, get a faster time or something like that, that would be good. Yeah, maybe work on my nutrition on the run so I've got more balance. Yeah.
Thank you, Aidan, for the discussion. Thanks, Mercedes, for the ride, to put it like that. And I hope you'll get back in Romania with the summit, but most important, with your family. Yeah, that would say that you loved Romania and you loved Bucharest and the cuisine. And thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you very much.